Hello and welcome to the show. While for me, one of the main attractions to the Festival of Speed is the huge variety of classic race cars that I might never have heard of, let alone even seen in action. However, if supercars, hypercars and some of the track day only specials are more your thing, there are plenty of those. To please you, just about every major manufacturer will be bringing all of their latest models and various special ones as well. Ferrari, as ever, have a massive stand. Some of these cars, it was the first time I had seen, in fact most of these I think was probably the first time I had seen them, including the new 488 Special Edition 1. McLaren had the Senna along with the rest of their supercars, but the one that really caught my attention was the specially made P1 GT. This one-off vehicle is incredible. I'll be honest, I was never the biggest fan of the P1, of the hypercars. It is perhaps one of my least favourite, don't get me wrong, fantastic car, but it's never really been something that, that I was the biggest fan of. However, this version is stunning. It's one of those cars that you can't quite appreciate when you see videos of. It really is something spectacular to behold when you see it in person. Lamborghini, they didn't have anything particularly different. I think every car, pretty much everything that they had here, I had seen before. They did have a Centenario Spider convertible, whatever version they name it. However, everything else was vehicles I had seen, although the pink Aventador was an interesting one to have. It's an interesting colour choice. The plus point is that it was a little bit quieter over by Lamborghini too. You could have a proper nose around the car if you so fancied. Koenigsegg, they had various vehicles here, including the Regera, a car that I couldn't seem to lose throughout just about all of the festival for whatever reason. In interesting green carbon fibre. There was a lot of coloured carbon fibre going around. But yeah, seeming like every single day I'd just wander upon a Regera moving around. Like, it's certainly not a bad thing. Of all the cars to stumble upon consistently, the Regera is certainly not a bad one. But I think on every single day at some point I happened to be near as a Regera went for a little bit of a drive, and it certainly is distinctive and certainly attracts a crowd. Again, it's another car that, seeing it in person, I like the look of it more than when I have seen it predominantly in games, is where I was seeing the Regera. And yeah, seeing it in person, it's a better looking car in person than sort of games and whatnot have perhaps done it justice. Outside of the Regera, there were also the Ageras. It's a pain having such similar names. There wasn't a 1-1 this year. I think it was last year, year before. We had that one. There wasn't a 1-1 here, sadly. However, there were two of these Ageras. It was a Thor Agera as well, the black carbon fibre one in the background. I mean, personally, I quite like this particular blue one. And again, it's amazing that you've got these hugely expensive, hugely technical, fancy hypercars, some of the fastest cars ever made, and you're allowed to just wander around, as I am here, with a camera. Noble, they had got their new car here as well. Now, I don't know if this was... It certainly wasn't being driven. It wasn't driving up the hill. I don't know whether this was just a kind of prototype model. I did try to see if there was an engine in there. I couldn't see it under all the housing. However, yeah, New Noble is always an interesting thing. It did look like it had some sort of interior. Again, very tinted windows. From the back, it looks very Noble-esque. From the front, it's an interesting looking car. It's perhaps not my favorite. There's kind of a little bit of trend at the moment to have these sort of pointed snouts going on at the front of vehicles. I don't know, I'm not 100% sold on the styling. Certainly not a bad looking car overall, but the nose is a little bit peculiar. I was not the only one with a little bit of a peculiar nose. Italian design. There's something about this car, when you get the right angle, it makes a very entertaining sort of a face. I mean, it's distinctive. I'll give it that. It is very distinctive. It is very distinctive indeed. Yeah, I mean, it's probably not the prettiest of vehicles that I've seen around. It's just the rest of it's quite, the rest of it's okay. It's just a strange, slight overhang on the nose. Not the mightiest of wings. But yeah, it's another car. Never really heard or seen much about it. You can just go and poke around and have a little bit of a look. The Italian design GTR, that was here as well. It's vast. It's actually way bigger than I expected this one to be. It's an absolutely massive car. Not a bad looking one though, not a bad looking one. The new W Motors vehicle that was here, the FailRace Supersport. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that one right, but yeah, I quite like the look of this one. Sort of like an evolved Lycan Hypersport, essentially. It is all sorts of interesting shapes and angles, and it's kind of only at Goodwood can you be busy, you know, focusing on one hypercar when an Aston Martin decides to disturb you. And this happens like every year. You'll be sat around here filming or looking, photographing, photoing, whatever vehicle it might be that you are interested in, and you're guaranteed to get interrupted by something. It's just, it's a guaranteed thing to have happen. Something is going to try and photobomb. And if something's going to try and get in the way, you know, an Aston Martin, you can't really go wrong. You can't really go wrong with one of those. They did have the Vulcan. Again, Aston Martin didn't have a huge amount of cars that I hadn't seen last year. The Vulcan was back. The Neo was perhaps one of the surprises for me. I've heard of it. You know, I've heard of the Neo. I've seen bits and pieces about it plenty. However, you know, I've never seen one in person. I was surprised that I actually quite liked the look of the car, and then quite impressed with the unbelievable speeds that this thing could do. It was mighty impressive. It was incredible going up the hill climb. But yeah, I didn't think I would like the look of the car quite as much as I do, having seen it driving, having seen it run in anger and seen it around the paddock. The new Brabham was here, the BT62. It does kind of look like, whenever I see it, it reminds me of a Ford GT and a Ferrari had kind of had a little bit of a session together, and this is what's popped out. It's not, again, certainly not a bad thing at all. It is a nice looking car, a nice sounding car. However, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me, but it does kind of feel it will look a little bit like those two. The Apollo IE was perhaps one of my favourite cars from the supercar paddock. It is utterly bonkers. It's bonkers in every single conceivable possible way. It's got purple carbon fibre. It's got spiky bits. Just about. It's got enough spiky bits to put it in a Mad Max film, quite frankly. But it's fine. It's ludicrous. It is utterly mad. I mean, the exhausts are, I mean, that shape. There's gold bits here and there. I really like it. But I'm not a big fan of the carbon fibre, sort of exposed carbon fibre cars. But if it's purple exposed carbon fibre, then I'm just about okay with it. The green carbon fibre wasn't too bad either, but the purple wins. Purple wins. It's just a ridiculous, crazy car. And I was fortunate enough to see not only the V8 Signet, of course, special mention for that one, but as the supercars were heading out onto the track for one of their runs, I was lucky enough to be standing right by it all.
With him and we'll walk down. Yeah.